Welcome to Easy Eats. My name is Chef Yves, and today we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Nada Whiltshire from the Rocky Lemon.
Hello.
Welcome back, Nada.
Thank you for
great to
having
have you. What are you making for us today?
So we're going to do a traditional English trifle today, just something light for Easter.
So an English trifle, can you walk me through exactly what that is?
Sure. So it's a layered dessert, which is kind of like a parfait. So
Okay.
today are going to use a pound cake for the cake base. You can do a different style cake, but we can talk about that later. And then it's just layering a really nice fresh fruit, custard, and whipped cream. And then you just kind of layer it all on top.
Perfect. It sounds delicious. So what are we going to start with?
So we're actually going to get our berries going just so that we can macerate them, and that's so that we can get some of their natural juices out of it. So today we're going to use fresh blueberries and raspberries. So we're going to add a couple tablespoons of sugar. Obviously we need some lemon zest.
Being the Rocky Lemon and all.
Of course, it has to be in there. And then we'll save some for the pound cake as well.
Fresh squeezed orange juice. Can you use any other juice, or does it have to be orange juice?
No, it could be anything. You can do lemon juice, you can do cranberry juice. We could have done blueberry or raspberry. Alrighty, so we're just gonna kind of mash it up just a little bit to get those sugars going. And then the syrup is gonna be really nice because we'll be able to soak the pound cake with it a little bit as well. I want to say that they use it just so that they can start repurposing like stale breads or stale cakes that they may have made so that nothing goes to waste. So this is a really great recipe if you have leftover cake or leftover even croissants if you wanted to use. So instead of baking it like a bread pudding, you would turn it into a trifle.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
It is a great way to repurpose. Or
Absolutely.
Cake edges, I guess, is what you would kind of do in your bakery, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. So we use any kind of trimming that we have off of it. When I'm cutting squares, like to do a brownie trifle with like chocolate and whipped cream is really nice. You just cut off your brownie edges, all that crispy bits, and you'd layer that for the cake instead of a pound cake. And now we're going to start our pound cake. So we're going to get our butter in first.
Why is it called a pound cake?
Well, traditionally it used to be measured by the pound. So everything was a pound of butter, a pound of sugar, a pound of flour, just so that it was nice and easy. But today we're not doing that. We've kind of revamped the recipe. So we're using about a 3/4 cup of butter in here.
Okay.
Alrighty, so now we're going to add our sugar, and we're going to let that mix, and we're actually going to let that cream is the term used. So that's just going to come together really nicely. We'll let that go.
Perfect.
And you just want it to incorporate the sugar. So this butter is a little on the harder side. You do want it to have like really nice and soft. So if it's this hard for you, just pop in the microwave for a couple of seconds until it becomes a little bit softer.
Well, I was going to ask, yeah, you want to use softened butter. You don't want to use melted butter,
That's right, because melted butter will change the consistency of the cake completely. You won't get that nice rise. You won't get the split down the middle. It'll make it like an oilier texture. It just not for what we want to do today. We want just a soft butter.
Right on.
Alrighty, so if you can see, it started to come together really nicely, and that's when we're going to add our eggs. So I'm going to crack the eggs into the bowl.
Perfect. I'm just going to lock that
Oh
for
yes,
you.
thank you.
No worries. And now you're cracking the eggs into a bowl as opposed to putting it into the thing. Other than the not getting any shells in it, is there any other purpose?
Really, it's just for the shells, but sometimes you can also get an egg that's maybe a little less savory looking
Gotcha.
than the other ones. But it is just to prevent any shells in here that you don't have to dig out.
Gotcha.
So we're going to add the eggs in there.
Now, does it have to be a large egg? I know that a lot of people with the price of eggs lately are moving towards more of a medium.
That's right.
Or even smaller. So can we talk about that?
Yeah.
A large egg is how many small or peewees or that kind of deal?
Baking should always be done by weight.
Yes,
really, it is
absolutely,
the nicest way, but we don't all have scales, and it's easier sometimes just to pop in one egg than weigh it. So your large egg will be roughly 50 grams.
Okay.
And then as the egg gets smaller, it'll go less and less. So if you did want to use a smaller egg, you could always just add an extra small egg instead, because a small egg is roughly 30 to 40 grams. So it's not too big of a difference. You could just use 3 small eggs. You just wouldn't get a high enough rise. But that's where you can add a little bit more baking powder and baking soda if you want the cake to rise a little bit more.
Give it a little bit more lift, absolutely. Okay,
Absolutely.
cool.
So we're just going to let this mix a little bit more until it comes together, because we want the eggs to be incorporated really nicely so that the rise is even with everything. because when your eggs aren't incorporated properly, you'll get pockets, and you don't want that in your pound cake.
Okay. So I noticed that you're creaming it, but you're not creaming it as much as I would say when I do my cookies for market. When I cream it till it gets super, super fluffy.
That's right.
Can you do that, or is there?
You can.
Okay.
The only reason that I don't like to do that is because what happens sometimes is when you create a lot of air with your butter and eggs, your final product ends up being drier and more crumbly.
Okay.
So a lot of people really want to see that whipped, and I do that for some cookies, but I like to have a little bit of a denser, more moist texture in the pound cakes because they tend to lean towards a drier cake anyways. So I don't like to mix it too much.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. So we're just going to unlock it. We're going to give it a scrape down.
Always important to scrape the side of
Absolutely.
your bowls. Just
The side
to
of the
make sure.
bowls, the paddle attachments, absolutely, because you want it all nicely incorporated into that.
Right on. So, what's new with you, Nada? We haven't spoken. I guess you were the
Yeah.
second episode in.
That's right. That's right. So a lot of things have changed, which is really exciting. I've leaned towards more catering, so I do a lot of different catering for office functions, events, weddings. So that's been a lot of fun. And I'm finally opening up my storefront. So after
fantastic
years
news.
of searching, I finally found a really great spot. It's a nice little location in Lincoln, right on the main road. So be sure to follow me on all the social medias.
Absolutely.
And so I'll be showing little tidbits of the process in creating that space, but it'll be really nice. It'll be an open kitchen style and then a nice little storefront as you walk in, so you can come and grab sandwiches and soups for lunch. You can grab your pastries and any orders that you have for pickup. So that I'm hoping to have open at the beginning of May or mid-May is my little timeline for that.
Soon, wow.
Yeah, so I'm really, really looking forward to that. It's going to be really great, I hope. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so I'm really excited about that. But we'll see how it goes.
Right on.
Alrighty, so now we're going to add our pinch of salt, our baking powder and baking soda, some lemon zest.
So you added salt to that mixture, and I'm always curious when we're doing sweets.
Yes.
And people are always saying, well, why are we putting salt in there?
Salt is wonderful. So salt and vanilla in your pastries act as like a flavor enhancer. So all of that will come up. You could have added the zest and you could kind of taste something in the background, but it wouldn't bring it out if I didn't have salt or the vanilla to it. So always add salt, or I prefer working with salted butter. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, be careful with salted butter. You never really know how much salt is in there. But there's never enough salt in there to overpower your dish, right? So use salted butter. It'll save you.
And it comes back to that whole idea now that things are getting expensive, so you need to buy something that's multi-purpose. So if you're going to buy butter, you may as well just buy one kind of butter.
Of course. Like if your family has salted butter constantly, I mean at $8 a pound, you don't want to have two different kinds for different purposes.
Absolutely.
Salted butter is the way to go, and it's great. So now I'm going to add our milk, our vanilla flavor, so that enhances all the flavors that are in there. And then we're going to scoop in our flour.
Perfect. And you can use all-purpose cake flour.
Yes, so that's why I really like the pound cake as well. You can use any kind of flour, your regular all-purpose, the bleach, cake flour, pastry flour you can use as well, but you will get much more of an airier cake. It'll be almost reminiscent of like an angel food cake.
Okay.
So like a cross. So we're just going to mix this until it becomes a really nice batter, that everything is all incorporated, that it starts to pull away from the bowl. And here we don't want to mix too much because this turning into almost like a bread consistency can happen very quickly.
Okay, and then it'll be just too dense? Is that the idea?
It would be just too hard.
Okay, so we talked about flours, cake flour, pastry flour, and we didn't touch on bread flour, but what are the differences between those flours? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, it's just the level of gluten that's in all of them. So pastry flour actually doesn't have much gluten in it at all. And then as you go down towards cake flour and then your regular all-purpose flour and then your bread flour will have the highest amount of gluten so that it provides that stretch and that like strength that you need in order to make your sourdough breads. Whereas pastry flour will give you that really nice light, airy consistency. It has like hardly any gluten in it. Often you'll also find some that are in the store will add self-leaveners, which really is just extra baking soda or powder that's in the cake flour mix in it anyway. So
Well, you'll see a lot of recipes, especially the ones in a lot of magazines.
That's right.
That'll say self-raising
Yeah.
flour. So 2 ingredients isn't really 2
that's
ingredients.
right. And so even though I say buy one thing for multi-purpose, the only thing I don't like buying is self-raising flour, only because you really have no idea how old the baking powder or baking soda in it is, if it's even enough to like leaven your cakes or your doughs. So if you can, buy them separately, your leaveners, your baking sodas, baking powders, and your flour.
And then the all-purpose is just a mixture of your cake or pastry and your bread flour.
That's right. That's like the standard flour that we all know and use on a regular basis. With those, the differences would just be whether you wanted it bleached or unbleached or organic or not. But those will always work the same way.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So now we're just going to scrape it all down. And we're going to line our baking sheet with some parchment.
Well, we just don't want it to stick, right?
That's right.
And if you don't have parchment paper,
you can spray it. Grab some Pam, you can spray that down, or you can take a stick of butter, rub it on the inside, and lightly flour it and dust off any excess. And that'll be a really nice way to keep your batters from not sticking.
And you don't want to use a whole lot because that'll affect the cake as well.
That's right, yes.
Perfect. So scraping the bowl while between batches is super important, right? We want to make sure we get all that, everything, and making sure that everything gets incorporated together. So there's no bits of flour in your pound cake.
That's right. Yeah, you don't want to have to cut into your pound cake and always see like a glob of flour that wasn't incorporated, or a big hole because your butter wasn't incorporated properly. So you really want to scrape it in between mixing once or twice just to get it all in, because what happens also is your paddle doesn't always touch straight to the bottom, so you will sometimes have a ring of butter if it was too cold, or a ring of flour that didn't get incorporated. And it's important to have all those all the ingredients in the recipe in your final product.
Absolutely, because baking is also a science. It's not it's not just like making a stew where it is about feeling it, but again, the chemical reactions in
That's
here.
right. So what I've done here, because the butter, I'll show you actually a really good example. Yeah. Because the butter was a little on the cooler side, we could have popped it into the microwave, but I chose not to. But you'll see how there's little pockets here. So if your pound cake has this is okay. These are small enough to just melt in, give it like a nice little caramelization. But if they were any bigger, like pea size, that's too much. That
would
would
have
just
big
melt.
greasy pockets in there. Yeah.
So now we're going to pop this in the oven at between 350 and 375 max, depending on your oven, and it'll go for about 40 minutes to 55 minutes.
Right on. So we're just going to pop this into the oven, and we'll be back after these few messages. Welcome back to Easy Eats. Our cake is in the oven, and we're getting ready to make our pastry cream with nata.
That's right.
So nata, what's the next step?
So like you said, while that's baking, we're going to get working on the other bits that go with the trifle. So we have some milk right now scalding, so we don't want to bring it to a boil. We just want it to get nice and hot. And then we're going to throw in our egg yolks. And just make sure that they are egg yolks, because when you add egg whites, you're making something completely different. And then we're going to add our cornstarch. That will help thicken our pastry cream as well. So we have our cornstarch and our egg yolks in here, and then we're going to add our sugar.
Now, so some people do this with a double boiler. Do you have to, or
you don't have to? The double boiler, they do that so that they can encourage it to become nice and smooth, and it takes away the risk of scrambling at the bottom or getting it to stick. And I just find that I don't need to do that, so I try not to. So we're going to mix that all together, and we save the sugar last, because what that'll do, if you added it earlier while this was still boiling, it'll actually cause your egg yolks to coagulate, and then you'll have tiny little pearls of egg yolks in there that you won't be able to get rid of.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to add a little bit of vanilla, some dash, and some more lemon zest. Now you may think, oh my God, there's way too much lemon. You're turning it into a lemon trifle. you're not. There's so little lemon zest in this. This is just going to enhance all the flavors.
Well, I was going to say lemon is also one of those flavor enhancers. It may not be prominent, but it does what salt and vanilla does.
Exactly, because like it'll just give you like, oh, that's so light and refreshing.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that's all nice and mixed. Now I may need you to hold that bowl just in case.
I can, absolutely.
Thank you. So we're going to pour this in slowly.
Now,
Just
if
kind of
you
give it a minute.
don't have a friend to hold this bowl for you, you can always fold a tea towel and set it underneath.
That's right.
And then it won't wiggle.
A tea towel or even like a wet paper towel, you can put at the bottom of that and it'll keep it in place. So if you noticed, I poured a little bit in, got that all mixing, and then as that's in, you're okay to kind of pour the rest in faster.
Yeah.
So we're going to turn this back onto the heat, about medium.
Medium
Heat. You can turn it up higher if you want, but then you run the risk of it sticking to the bottom and it becoming scrambled eggs. So we're gonna whisk. And you want to get right to the bottom, like you feel it kind of scraping against. You want to do that.
You want
because
to bring
you don't
that
want it to
bottom?
stick.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's chat a little bit more about you opening this business. This must be
That's
a lot
right.
of work. So what kind of work does it
It
take
is.
to get something like this off the ground?
So first and foremost, you have to start getting your permits. You need to call your health inspector, get them working with you so that you know as you're progressing in your business what you're doing and how you're doing it, and making sure that you're doing it properly so that you have it set up proper right from the get-go. So that's the first step that I'm taking, and then it's finding all the equipment that you need. So that I'm lucky that I've been doing this for a while, that I've already kind of have a good stockpile of all the equipment that I need. And then after that, it's finding great staff that want to work in pastry, that want to grow their skills in pastry, and get them in there. And and then we just start from that. So I think my biggest not issues, but like the hardest thing I had here was trying to find a really great location that was reasonably priced, that was with people that I wanted to work with, but also people that were excited to bring in small businesses. I found that was kind of a challenge. Trying to find space in Fredericton is really hard because it's also always so expensive. So you want to try to find something that will benefit you and the business and the community. And I think in Lincoln, like I'm really excited to be there. It's close to home where I am in Burton. It's close to my old kitchen, which was in the industrial park, but it's also just a lovely community.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, a neighborhood bakery or a little bake shop, a little lunch counter, I guess
That's
is
right.
what you're looking to do, right?
Yes. So I may not have a lot of seating inside, but I'm hoping over the summer I'll be able to have some great tables outside. But it's enough space for you to come in, grab a coffee, a sandwich to go, some salad for lunch, grab your sweets and your pastries, and just start your day, with the rocket lemon.
I know that you have such a small staff, so you're definitely going to have to grow and hire a few more
That's
people.
right. That's right. So by staff, you mean my parents that I forced to work with me.
Well, I mean, it's a labor of love, right?
But
so
we're truly a family-run business.
Yeah.
Like I learned everything that I know from my mom. I harnessed other skills through school. But if it weren't for my mom and dad from the get-go, like, oh, Eve, you're going to get me tearing up now. Yeah. But if it weren't from I am totally tearing up.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't because of them, like I wouldn't be where I am today. Like it was the encouragement from them. It was constantly their help with the business.
Perfect. It'd be a great place for someone who would be looking into getting a kind of a pastry apprentice. Are you
That's
able
right.
to do that kind of stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So anybody who's either straight out of school and needs some extra hours, or somebody who's working on the Red Seal and is just doing apprentice hours, please feel free to come in.
Well, you know what? You're opening up in the perfect time because a lot of schools are letting out, and I know that a lot of culinary programs,
That's right.
kids need to do an apprenticeship, so
That's right.
you can be definitely a good spot for them to come and approach.
And I'd like to think that I have a few tips and tricks that I can pass on to people who want to learn. So as you can see, it's like really nice and thick. So this is the consistency we want. You can also do a test with a spatula. I don't know what I do with my spatula.
I can just grab, or a wooden spoon even, right?
Yes, wooden spoon would be great. You want it nice and thick to coat the back of the spoon, so that's nappe.
Nappe literally just means that when you run, it doesn't run down into the line, so you get a solid line.
So we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of butter. Now, the reason that I'm putting the butter in is because it just helps with like the silkiness of the pastry cream.
Doesn't it also shock the custard
That's
into
right.
stopping the cooking process?
That's right. So it won't, it'll keep it at the consistency that you want it.
So we'll just strain this pastry cream, and we'll be back after the break to continue on making a trifle. Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, my name is Chef Yves Duchesne, and I'm with Nada Whiltshire from the Rocky Lemon. And we are going to put this trifle together now,
Yeah, it's going to finally come together. So we have our pastry cream. We just lined the top with saran wrap, and we popped it in the fridge until it's nice and cool. And now we're going to work on our whipped cream. So we're going to get the whipped cream going. So we've just added our cream and added some icing sugar. So we're just going to let that come up, and while that's kind of mixing, we're going to keep an eye on it. We have a pound cake here that I did a little while ago.
And that's why this is also a great dessert to make with scraps and pieces or extras,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So I like taking my pound cake a little further than really necessary, but that's because I love this caramelization on it. It's as if you just added caramel to your trifle, and it's so nice. So I like cutting them into slices like this, and then we're just going to tear up the pieces. And I do that just so that the pieces are roughly the same size.
Easter, it's your favorite holiday.
It really is.
And as a baker, it's got to be.
There's something about Easter that I guess just kind of happened as a child. Like, it's just something we always look forward to. We used to do a big fast for Easter, so we couldn't have any animal product. But like come Easter, then we got to like crack eggs with our family, and we have like a fun little game that's traditional of like the Serbian culture. We do egg fights, so we crack each other's eggs to see who's the last person standing with a whole uncracked egg, and that's just like little fun things, but the things that carried on with me, right? So this still needs a few minutes to whip up. So now you'll see with our macerated fruit, it started turning and picking up the colors from the actual juices, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we want to take a little bit of that juice, we'll put it down on the bottom, get that into your cake, and then top it with some fruit. So we're still working on that cream, but now we'll take our pastry cream that I made earlier, and we're just going to line the bottom or the next layer of the trifle.
So with this storefront coming on, are you going to back away from the catering, Nada, or are you still going to
No.
kind of work yourself crazy?
I don't know how to do anything but work myself crazy, but I also really love it because it gives me that opportunity to share genuinely what I love doing with so many people. So if you can see that it's finally now starting to come together, and it'll start to pull away from the bowl, but once you can see the shape of the mix, like the whisk in the whipped cream, that's when I like to take it off.
Okay.
Alrighty, so now we're going to, you see how nice, and like it holds its shape. Oh my God, this is so good. So we're gonna add the whipped cream on top. And there's never too much whipped cream. If someone tells you to stop adding the whipped cream, just disown them as a friend.
There you go.
We're gonna add another layer.
We'll fill the bowl, yeah.
Absolutely. And then we're gonna add that juice again. Alrighty, so we're gonna put another layer of this delicious whipped cream.
There we go, and it's starting to look fantastic.
Right. And then we're gonna top it with fresh berries.
Grab the raspberries here.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna take some of the crispier bits of the cake and almost turn them into kind of like a little crumble on top. Just
cool.
Like just as an extra little garnish, right? Trifles are just such a nice, light, fun, easy dessert to make for your friends and family.
A welcome to spring, a hooray for summer.
Absolutely.
A great potluck, and I guess that being said, this time of year or any big occasion, if you're tasked to bring something, this is something great. Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us today here at the Greener Village, and good luck to you and good success on your new shop.
It's always such a pleasure.
Right on. Thanks.